Hi everybody, my name is Raven. I'm the Rainbow Veteran. I use she, her pronouns, and this is another episode of the Rainbow Veteran Podcast. So, before I get into today's episode, I do want to talk about being late and everything this week, and maybe just the way I'm coming across here. Not super high energy lately. I'm going through insomnia treatment with the VA. I am not sleeping, and the way to kind of fix my insomnia treatment right now, or my insomnia right now, is basically make me sleep for 5 hours a night. So I'm staying up for about 18 hours a day, going to bed around midnight at the earliest, and waking up at 6 in the morning. So it's not a fun time, and so definitely working on that. So my energy might not be the greatest these next couple of weeks, and I do want to give you guys a heads up on that. I'm also trying to look at the camera more, kind of give you guys more actual focus, like I'm talking to you kind of vibe. I noticed last recording, I was looking at my computer a lot, and I was basically right, and that's not good content for anybody. So I do have my computer here. It is just opening with Riverside. Having a lot of issues with Riverside lately, so I do want to keep it here close to me, and you guys get to see my nice Mr. Yuck homophobia and transphobia yuck stickers. But I'm taking some inspiration from the late night shows, and I got my show notes printed. Went out and bought new printer ink just for this. So, without further ado, let's get started on today's episode. So, I'm going to be talking about a lot of the context behind it before I actually get to what's going on. But the Kim Davis Supreme Court ask that happened earlier, I want to say late last month. So, if you don't know what's going on, Kim Davis and her lawyer from Liberty Counsel officially asked the Supreme Court to waive her, $230,000 legal fees, give or take $7,000 or $70,000. They're asking them to waive them and simultaneously overturn Obergefell v. Hodges, something that a lot of us in the LGBT community are very, very, very concerned about. And yes, some states have already asked the Supreme Court to do this, and the Supreme Court shut it down. But that was before Roe v. Wade was overturned. And the reason why Roe v. Wade became a thing and allowed abortions without any state or federal government interference up to a certain point was because of the 14th Amendment. And that precedent that was used in Roe v. Wade is a similar one that was used in the Obergefell case. So, before I can even talk about Kim Davis and how everything blew up around her, I have to talk about Obergefell. So Obergefell v. Hodges is the Supreme Court case that on July 26, 2015, made marriage equality for same-sex, same-gendered couples legal across the board in the United States. It was a 5-4 decision that the 14th Amendment requires all states to grant same-sex marriages and recognize same-sex marriages granted in other states. The court overruled its previous decision in the Baker v. Nelson case, which the Sixth Circuit Court had invoked at the time as precedent. Now, Obergefell v. Hodges came around the second anniversary of the United States v. Windsor case ruling, where Section 3 of the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA at the time, which denied federal recognition to same-sex marriages, was deemed unconstitutional. And that was a big thing for veteran folks, because it's around the time that, it's post Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And that Windsor case was huge for dependents of same-sex service members and veterans. And it's actually a thing that still helps us today. The court determined that yes, the 14th Amendment, specifically the section that states all citizens should be treated fairly under the law, does cover same-sex marriages. So this made every state required to treat all marriages, regardless of sex and gender of the couple, the same. And this is where we get into the issue with Kim Davis. So, background for Kim. Kim is at the time this all went down, Kim was an elected official. She was the county clerk for the Rowan County Clerk Office in Rowan County, Kentucky. And edit. And she gained national attention when a viral video from Dave Ermold and his now husband, David Moore, recorded them being denied by Kim Davis to get marriage licenses issued. And she threw a big hissy fit with that. So, in August 2015, this video came out, and basically, despite the federal requirement for her to do that, she refused. She stated it went against her religious beliefs and her First Amendment rights. And I'm going to tell you this, your First Amendment right does not give you the right to deny people their freedoms. Just because you have the right to practice your religion does not give you the right to use that religion as a weapon against others. And especially when you're working in a government position that is working as part of the establishment, you will be breaking the establishment cause using your religion in an official capacity like that. And I also want to say to anybody who says, but marriage is a Christian thing, no, it's not. Marriage is older than Christianity. Marriage is older than Jesus. Marriage has been happening well before Jesus was born, well before Christianity, okay? So Davis asked the Kentucky governor at the time, Steve Beshear, to make an executive order to protect clerks who have a moral objection against issuing same-sex marriage licenses. Now, the day, July 7th, 2015, is when that video was recorded by David and David. And kind of became a big thing. But it took until August 2015 for it to really blow up in the nation. And I remember that I was in college when all this went down. And I just remembered this lady with a bump it well after they're out of style, who looks like Roz from Monsters, Inc., is really upset that gay folks are getting married. And then after that video went viral, like almost instantly, she began speaking at rallies against marriage equality and just began denying any and all marriage licenses as like a form of protest, which, like, come the fuck on. Come the fuck on. Like, you're working as a government official. Like, there's a lot of places that have laws against officials basically protesting and not doing their job. And, like, I don't get where she got the idea that she can just get the fuck away from this, other than, oh, I'm a Christian. And look, don't get me wrong, I don't have an issue with Christian folks. I have an issue with evangelical Christians who use their religion as a weapon. I have a problem with anybody who uses their religion as a weapon to attack the rights of other people, to make other people's lives hell. Because I know for sure that's not what Jesus taught y'all. Look, I didn't go to church for very long, but I went to a Southern Baptist church in Virginia. I learned what Jesus taught us, and it ain't doing that crap, alright? So we're going to get into the lawsuits against Davis here. So 6 couples were denied licenses from Davis, sued her in official capacity as the county clerk. And that's a big detail right there. They sued her as the county clerk, not her as the person, her as the county clerk, her as the government official. And that's going to be a bit of a snag with the whole, I have over a few $100,000 of legal fees I have to pay, and why she's talking to, like, the Supreme Court right now, right? So 4 of the couples were represented by the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU of Kentucky, while the other 2 were filing with private representation. The first lawsuit with the ACLU was two opposite-sex couples marriages, and that was the Miller v. Davis case on July 2nd, 2015. David Ermel and David Moore, who shot the viral video, sued, represented by Joseph Buckles and Thomas Zagetsky. So sorry if I mispronounce any freaking names here. Yeah, some of them I'm just going to try to push through and carry on. And Ermel v. Davis. And then the other couple was James Yates and William Smith Jr. They were represented by Renee Heinrich of Heinrich Firm PLLC and Cash Stilts of Roosh and Stilts PCS. And they filed their case on August 25th, 2015 in Yates v. Davis. So they were the ones that were kind of late to the party after the whole national media got attention. But everyone else had lawsuits well before this got national news. So Federal District Judge Dave Bunning of the United States District Court of Eastern Kentucky was kind of the head of all of this with all the lawsuits. He was the one that was holding most of the court hearings. He was the one that put a lot of the injunctions in and made a lot of the rulings for most of the Davis's cases. Try saying that 5 times fast. So we're going to hear Bunning quite a bit in this story and kind of the background of what brought Kim to the Supreme Court, basically. So he held hearings with Davis and Ashland where she was the only witness. They didn't ask any of the couples who were denied their marriage licenses up to the stand. They didn't ask any of the county deputy clerks to go up to the stand. Nope, just Davis. Which is a little fishy, right? And she argued tearfully, tears in her eyes, I remember this on the news, that it wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment thing, that she was acting in her rights with the First Amendment and acting in God, saying that it was thought out and she sought God for it. Davis had already decided against resigning from her post, and as doing so, she said, would only leave the matter to her deputies, and it would solve nothing or help no one. Which, you're not doing your job. You're stopping people from getting their marriage licenses, so at the same time, you're solving nothing and helping nobody. Real solid logic there, Kim Davis. Fuck you. And if anybody has a hold of Kim Davis, or like just this video, if somehow it gets so blown up, send this to her. And I'll just say this directly to her. Fuck you, Kim Davis. So Governor Beshear stated that he would not call for a special session of the General Assembly to address Davis's concerns, but some legislators did state that there could be a session down the road to accommodate Davis with possible new legislation. Davis's attorney from Maitland, Florida-based law firm Liberty Counsel, a pro-First Amendment law firm, who basically their big focus is just to try to get people who are Christians to kind of bend the law to their will. I have some thoughts about Liberty Counsel, just as the same way as I have some thoughts with the Westboro Baptist Church. They stated that the plaintiffs were free to drive to other counties to obtain their marriage licenses, with one adding, "This is not about the plaintiffs' desire to get married. This is a case about their desire to force Kim Davis to approve and authorize their marriage in violation of her constitutionally protected religious beliefs." Now, I want to talk about that real fast. Again, I want to reiterate this. You cannot use your rights to deny people their rights. Your religion has nothing to do with your job. As a government employee, your religion stays out of the equation. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's like a doctor saying he can't cure you because you're the wrong religion. Can you imagine that? That is just the same level of stupidity. Davis and her attorneys sued Governor Beshear for ordering her to violate her religious beliefs instead of trying to accommodate them, arguing that Beshear, not Davis, should be held accountable for the legal fees brought on by the ACLU. And on August 12th, Bunning issued a temporary stay barring Davis from applying her no marriage license policies to future marriages and license requests. Edit. On August 12th, Bunning issued a temporary stay barring Davis from applying her no marriage license policy to future marriage license requests. Before this day expired, the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit refused to extend that ruling for an appeal. It cannot be defensibly argued that the holder of the Rowan County Clerk's Office may decline to act in conformity with the United States Constitution. The three-judge panel wrote unanimously in their refusal, continuing, "There is thus little or no likelihood that the clerk in her official capacity will prevail on an appeal." So basically, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals just said, hey, you can't use your religion as a weapon. You have to do your job. If you're not doing your job and you're using your religion as a basically a rule or a moral thing to say, you can't do this, get the fuck out. And it's very different than like, oh, I'm a conscientious objector. I'm not going to attack innocent people. I'm not going to raise a weapon against other people. That's a big difference than, I don't like these people having rights, and my religion, I'm just going to bend to my will and bend to what I want to do to basically justify my hate. Big fucking difference. Alright? So, what does Davis do? The Sixth Circuit Court says, you're not gonna get anywhere with appeals. Just don't try, right? Well, Davis and Liberty Counsel says, fuck you, and tries anyway. So, they filed an emergency application to appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court on August 31st, 2015. In a one-line order, the Supreme Court refused to hear the appeal, preventing Davis from legally continuing to deny marriage licenses. In response to the court's refusal to grant her stay, Davis stated, I'm going to try to do her voice. I never imagined a day like this would come where I would be asked to violate a central teaching of the scripture and of Jesus himself regarding marriage. He didn't say shit about marriage. Newsflash. To issue a marriage license would conflict with God's definition of marriage with my name affixed to the certificate would violate my conscience. Yeah, okay, you're conscious to be a bigot. That's all it is. You're just a bigot. It's okay. You can admit when you're an asshole. We won't do anything. We'll just keep, you stay over there. Way over there. We'll stay here and enjoy the same rights. But you could be an asshole over there and just stay the fuck out of our lives. No, instead, you want to try making our lives fucking harder. Davis actually continued to defy Bunning's court order after the Supreme Court's refusal. The following morning, several couples sought to obtain marriage licenses, but Davis said no and turned them away, saying that she was acting under God's authority. Some in the media questioned whether Davis, who had been married 4 times, twice to the same guy, and only recently converted to Christianity, was acting hypocritically in the application of her beliefs. And that's the thing that gets me too, right? These born-again Christians who are evangelical. Like, you can find religion later in life. I don't care. As long as you're not using it as a weapon and trying to make it, and especially in this country, the rule of land, right? Because separation of church and state is a huge thing here. If you find religion later in life, and that helps you, fine. Practice it, whatever you do. That's for you to follow. Don't try to tell me how to live my life just because your book says to do something or not to do something. So, also ironic that she's like, oh, hey, I'm acting on the word of God, but I'm a government official, so, just fuck everything I do officially, right? So, this is where a lot of the fees start coming from. It's a bit of a doozy. So now, during the Miller v. Davis case, Judge Bunning ordered Davis and her 6 deputy clerks to appear before him on September 3rd, 2015. After the 6 couples who sought to have her her 6 deputy clerks to appear before him on September 3rd, 2015, after the 6 couples sought to have her held in contempt of court. Bunning ruled in the plaintiff's favor and held Davis in contempt due to her refusal to, quote, not interfere with her deputies issuing marriage licenses for gay couples. Speaking on Davis's behalf, her attorney said Davis would not make any representation that she would allow marriage licenses to be issued, thus not accepting the compromise that would have led to her release. The ACLU also asked the court to fine Davis, but Bunning ordered her to be reprimanded in custody after the hearing. The judge said Davis will remain there until she complied with the court's order to issue marriage licenses. Bunning then spoke with each of the deputy clerks of Davis. Only her son, Nathan Davis, refused to actually issue any marriage licenses, but for some reason Bunning didn't hold him in contempt of court. I think it's because the order was actually for Davis herself not to interfere, and Nathan was acting of his own validity, which was also breaking the law at the time, but for some reason Bunning was like, that's gotta be its own lawsuit or something. I don't fucking know what was going through his mind at the time. Davis was then transported to Carter County Detention Center in Grayson, Kentucky by the U.S. Marshal on September 4th, 2015. The first day the office was opened after she was incarcerated. The deputy clerks began issuing marriage licenses to all couples. James Yates and William Smith Sr., who were independently suing Davis, were the first couple of Rowan County to receive a marriage license since Obergefell's case. They were soon followed by the other couples who were plaintiffs against Davis. Through her Liberty Counsel attorney, Davis filed another appeal of the court, holding her for the hold of her in contempt of court, asking that she be released immediately from jail and that her name removed from marriage licenses, allowing her deputies to issue them. Separately, Davis asked the governor to free her. The governor's office said that the conflict was, quote, a matter between her and the courts. So basically, it's a nice way of saying, fuck off, we don't care. Bashir added that he lacked the legal authority to either remove Davis or relieve Davis of her statutory duties. Rowan County Democratic Judge Executive Walter Blevins stated that he did not believe he would need to appoint a replacement for Davis, and that he believed that the Attorney General of Kentucky and the General Assembly will pass something where marriage licenses don't have anyone's names on them. Because some states don't have that. Like, some states, you're just like, okay, here's, boom, a stamp. I think Pennsylvania's like that. I'm not going to lie, most of the process for our marriage certificate for me, or a marriage license, kind of a blur. I let my spouse do most of that stuff. I think I was still healing from a TBI, so my memory's kind of foggy on that. Oh yeah, I was still healing, because that was like 6 months after my brain injury. So yeah, most of that's kind of fuzzy for me. So 5 days on Tuesday, September 8th, Bunning ordered Davis let me try that again. 5 days later, on Tuesday, September 8th, Bunning ordered the jail to release Davis. The order stated, defendant Davis shall not interfere in any way or indirectly with the efforts of her deputy clerk to issue marriage licenses to all legally eligible couples, which means marriage equality, right? If defendant Davis should interfere in any way with their issuance, this will be considered a violation of this order, and appropriate sanctions will be considered. Bunning's order also stated that the deputy clerks must continue to comply with his earlier order to issue marriage licenses and submit status reports to him every 14 days to ensure their compliance. And they did. They released statements pledging to continue issuing licenses after Davis's release, stating that they would ignore any and all orders from her to do otherwise. And they would comply with not only Obergefell's ruling, but with the federal judge's orders. Licenses issued since Davis's refusal state that they are authorized by the Rowan County Clerk's Office, but no longer bear her name. Supporters of Davis gathered around the county courthouse since her first day in custody, said that her deputies were unlawfully issuing licenses and should resign or be fired. Because, yeah, the people who are actually following the rules, doing their job properly, should be fired. But not the person who's actually denying other people's rights. That makes loads of fucking sense to me, right? I don't know about y'all, but that makes fucking no sense at all. Like, it's a questionable gray area, but this is also under the rule of the court, under the rule of the state. So they're legal, but it's a gray area. Davis returned to work a week later on September 14th, 2015, stating that while she would not interfere with any deputy clerk who issues marriage licenses, she would not personally issue or authorize any forms. She also created several altered versions of the Kentucky marriage license form and instructed her deputy clerks to use them, which had her name and reference to the clerk's office removed. Now, ACLU did sue Davis separately for these alterations, which found the whole legality of the marriage licenses issued with these forms questionable. There's just certain things that, like, that can come down the road to where, like, even states here in, like, PA, a married couple in York County, a wife who was a survivor of a military person, a service member, she lost her benefits in York County because they got married with an ordained minister, and I believe he was part of the Guard. It was something weird. I remember hearing this story a few years ago, so I'm very fuzzy on the details. But yeah, because the minister wasn't tied to a church, a physical building church, or a place of worship, they were able to deny her benefits. Which is just, it's so fucking shitty to do that to someone. Like, it really fucking is. So, I could see why the ACLU would want to push for that additional lawsuit, because she's making it harder to not only have marriage licenses, but also keeping them valid for longer. Because, you know, someone down the road could just say, hey, this isn't valid anymore. Guess what? You haven't been married the last 14, 15 years. Governor Steve Beshear was asked by Bunning to brief the court on the validity of the licenses, and the governor acknowledged that Kentucky would recognize them, but he cannot verify the legality of the licenses issued or by the means of them being issued or altered. Bunning ultimately denied the ACLU's separate lawsuit, stating that the altered forms were likely legal and that Davis was abiding by the court orders. But it's such a big gray area, and that's the thing that's sad, is like, we don't know. We don't know if this is actually going to still keep the marriage licenses legal. And with the way states are writing legislation right now, possibly could be a loophole for some marriages, which is really shitty to think about. While Davis inside her personal office, same-sex couples successfully walked out of the county clerk's office with their licenses. One applicant said, "My license is valid, and it's valid because of the court order that's in effect. It doesn't have to have a signature." So under Kentucky law, and this is why I'm going to bring up a little bit of the fact that, like, this is why she couldn't get fired. So under Kentucky law, a Commonwealth attorney has the power to indict various local officials, including judge executives, justices of the peace, sheriffs, coroners, surveyors, jailers, county attorneys, and constables for, quote, maleficence in the office or willful negligence to discharge of official duties, an offense that's punishable by getting kicked out of your job and a fine of $1,000. So basically, you're not doing your fucking job, and there's legal repercussions for that, right? However, because of the way the law is written, county clerk, which was probably a position that opened up after this was law was made, it's not on that list. And Andrew Wolfson of USA Today at the time blamed this statute, not including that, for some reason lost to history for the omission. Because Davis is an elected official, she could not be just fired from her position. So for her to be removed, she either had to basically leave the position or have impeachment proceedings followed up on her. After being denied a license 4 times, one couple asked the Rowan County Attorney's Office to investigate Davis for official misconduct, a misdemeanor under Kentucky law at the time. Official misconduct is a first-degree Class A misdemeanor and is punishable with imprisonment not exceeding 12 months and fines of $500 per, I think it's per instant. I don't know if they lumped it all together or if each one is considered its own instant. Wasn't really written out very well. The Rowan County Attorney's Office is prohibited from prosecuting Davis. Rowan County Attorney Cecil Watkins referred to the official misconduct complaint to the Kentucky Attorney General's office, led by Attorney General Jack Conway. The Attorney General office conducted a review, and Conway issued a statement saying, "We are a nation of laws, and no one can defy an order from a federal judge." Conway then issued a one-sentence statement saying that he would not appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Davis. And months after her office began issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples, Davis's lawyer filed a motion asking the U.S. Supreme Court of Appeals, 6th Circuit, to overturn 4 of Judge Bunning's decisions, calling them a rush to judgment that imposed direct pressure and substantial burden on Davis, forcing her to choose between her religious beliefs and forfeiting her essential personal freedom on one hand, or abandoning those beliefs to keep her freedom on the other hand. Which is such a huge fucking cop-out. Bunning, all Bunning did was basically say, hey, you have to do your fucking job. You work in the government. You cannot use your religion to deny people their rights. Do your fucking job. Obviously, the court denied that motion on November 5th. Davis's lawyer filed their last appeal the next day, requesting a delay in issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples, arguing that the previous decision should only apply to the couples that sued Davis with the ACLU. Now, keep in mind, I'm actually going to go back here. That is basically, she was told to issue them, that to have all future marriage licenses, I think I remember exactly what it said, that all future marriage licenses should be issued beyond just the couples that sued. So it's all future marriage licenses. So I don't know what you're doing there, Liberty Counsel, trying to make that bullshit up. The appeal also asked the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals to overturn a previous ruling that had sent Davis to jail for failure to comply. This final appeal was denied 2 days later by the court. Basically, the 6th Circuit Court just like, what the fuck are you doing? We've already told you no multiple times. You can't just keep changing the way you ask us to do shit. And this is where it gets a little complicated because this whole next section is basically where all the fees are coming from. Yes, I said that earlier, this is still under this section, but this specifically is the breakdown of the fees. So March 2016, the Campaign for Accountability, or CFA, Washington, D.C. based nonprofit group, made a request to Davis to access public records under the Kentucky Open Records Act, seeking copies of the retainer agreements and lawyer-client engagement agreements between Davis and her attorneys at Liberty Counsel. Liberty Counsel responded to the request on Davis's behalf, refusing to comply, arguing that the documents were preliminary and private records are not subject to the act. Now, I could be wrong on this, but they were suing her in her official capacity as the Rowan County Clerk. That's suing a government official, so the Open Records Act should cover that. And I'm just saying, they weren't suing her as a private citizen. They were suing her as her official position. So, from my understanding of open record laws, that's covered. And so to say, no, we're not going to do it, it's kind of a bullshit move, Liberty Counsel. CFA appealed to the Office of Kentucky Attorney General, which under Kentucky law has the authority to make binding rulings for the Open Records Act, and resubmitted its request to Davis's office of April 2016. The Attorney General's office sought to privately review the records and issue to determine if an exemption applied. Basically, they had to read the paperwork to see. But Liberty Counsel refused to give them the documents, or at least most of them, for a private review. In an opinion issued on June 30th, 2016, the Attorney General's office determined that Davis had violated the Open Records Act, saying that her conduct had to effect of intentionally frustrating the Attorney General's review of an open records request, which would subvert the General Assembly's intent to provide review by the Attorney General. One of the first, and that's the thing too. It's like, oh, basically, okay, you're stopping us from doing our job. You're stopping us from basically finding out what was going on based on your job, based on you acting as an official government employee, as an entity, an official capacity should be available. We're just gonna check if the stuff is good for us to use to send to stuff that wouldn't break our client confidentiality. And they refuse to give them the paperwork. And I don't know, where do you get the gall to just do that with your government? Like, what? So soon after there was a new Kentucky governor, Matt Bevin, and one of his first acts was an executive order to remove clerks' names from state marriage licenses. Bevin expressed hopes on November 6, 2015, that the executive order will check the religious beliefs of officials who oppose gay marriage. Fucking jag off. Kim Davis and her attorneys at Liberty Counsel immediately requested that the court dismiss her appeals because the new regulation provided a religious accommodation for her and makes the case moot. Bunning agreed and dismissed the 3 lawsuits filed against her, saying that the new governor's order to use a license form that does not require the county clerk's signature has removed the controversy before the court. One of the plaintiff couples who were denied marriage licenses from Davis contacted Bunning requesting that they be allowed to recoup the $230,000 in legal fees. Davis's attorney asserted that their legislative victory resolves the matter and that the couples did not prevail against Davis, therefore were not entitled to demand that Davis reimburse their legal fees. Separately, Rowan County filed a response contending that the county government should never have to pay for the actions of a single county clerk. Which I'm like, I understand taxpayer money, but they were suing her as an official of Rowan County. So maybe split the diff. Then by May 2017, a Cincinnati federal appeals court found Bunning had erred in finding that damages claimed by the plaintiff couple, David Ermold and David Moore, became moot, saying that the district court's characterization of this case as simply contesting the no marriage licenses policy is inaccurate. Because Ermold and Moore did not seek an injunction, they only sought damages, observing that the records did not prevent damage claims. The 3-judge panel granted leave for the couple to sue for damages over one marriage license. Their case was sent back to Bunning, where he stated that the state of Kentucky was obligated to pay $222,000 in legal fees, and the ACLU sued Davis to recover $233,000 in legal fees, but the motion was denied. The organization was not a prevailing party in the legal action. Basically, they didn't win the case because the case was thrown out the window because the governor basically stepped in and made an executive order. By February 2019, Governor Bevin formally rejected the idea of Kentucky bearing the $222,000 financial responsibility, insisting that the amount should be paid by Ken Davis alone. Only Davis refused to comply with the law, Bevin stated through his attorneys, insisting that taxpayers should not have collectively bear the financial responsibility for Davis's intransgression. However, Bunning issued a preliminary injunction ordering the state of Kentucky to pay her legal fees, writing that Davis represented the Commonwealth of Kentucky when she refused to issue marriage license to legally eligible couples. The buck stops there. So yeah, it's basically she was working as a government official. They sued a government official. It wasn't Kim Davis they sued. It was the county clerk of Rowan County. You kind of at least split the diff. At least pay part of it. If a government official fucks up, guess what? Most of the time the government has to pay that. Where am I? Local reporting acknowledged that Bevan had previously backed her refusal to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. On August 23rd, 2019, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals in Cincinnati upheld Bunning's decision ordering Kentucky to pay the $225,000 legal bill for Kim Davis's case. Bunning ruled on March 18, 2022. Yeah, this shit's been going on nonstop. Like, they just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Davis violated the constitutional rights in both the Miller and Ermold cases in light of the Supreme Court's Obergefell decision, stating that she cannot use her own constitutional rights as a shield to violate the constitutional rights of others while performing her duties as an elected official. This decision allowed the plaintiffs in Miller and Ermold to continue to seek legal fees and potentially other damages from Davis through a jury trial. On September 13th, 2023, a jury ordered Davis to pay Ermold and Moore $100,000 in damages, and on December 28, 2023, that Davis must pay. Bunning added $246,026.40 in attorney fees and $14,058.30 in attorney's expenses. Liberty Counsel, which represents Davis, has stated that they will file a motion to reverse the jury's verdict and overturn Bunning's decision. Basically, guess what? We're just going to appeal it until you say we don't have to pay the bill. In July 2025, Davis filed a writ of certiorari, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, with the U.S. Supreme Court asking it to overturn a March 2025 ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit upholding Bunning's March 2022 decision and to overturn Obergefell. And this is where we get into, all of that background, all of that fucking background to get to where we are today. So, why is this a concern? So, as of recording this episode, it's still just an ask of the Supreme Court. I think other states like Tennessee asked the Supreme Court and they said no on it, but they never used a person's First Amendment right to go against the 14th Amendment rights, right? And there's a few on the court that are giving a lot of us in the LGBTQI plus community some concern. Like, Judge Thomas has stated after the Roe v. Wade overturned thanks to the Dobbs case that they should look at Obergefell v. Hodges as the precedent was set during the Dobbs case. And I'm going to, unfortunately, probably butcher some names here. But legal analysts do believe that the case will either be not addressed at all by the Supreme Court, like with the Tennessee one, or if they do address it, the decision will remain the same as Obergefell. Is very high possibility, but they do say there's a very unlikely chance that Obergefell will be overturned, but it is a possibility. Erwin Chemerinsky, so sorry if I butchered that, UC Berkeley Law, quote, "I think it is unlikely the court will overrule Obergefell, though it is possible. Marriage equality is deeply entrenched and widely accepted in American society. Judge Roberts, Thomas, and Alito all dissented in Obergefell, and I expect Thomas and Alito would vote to overturn it. Roberts' position is uncertain, though the only dissent he ever read from the bench was on Obergefell. Justice Gorsuch wrote a dissent in Pavon v. Smith, sharply criticizing Obergefell v. Hodges. But what about Cavan and Barrett? There may be the votes, but my instinct is the court is unlikely to do so. It's not as controversial in the way Roe v. Wade remained." Matthew Straver, Liberty Counsel, and Kim Davis's lawyer, says, "This case presents compelling facts for the Supreme Court to review. Kim Davis asked for a reasonable accommodation for her religious belief to remove her name from marriage certificates. This request was granted by a newly elected Governor Matt Bevin in December 2015, and in April 2016, their legislature unanimously passed a law allowing clerks to remove their name edit, to remove their name from certificates. Yet she was sued and jailed for 6 days and now faces personal judgments exceeding $360,000. We are asking the court to affirm her First Amendment defense to overturn Obergefell v. Hodges. So basically, hey, we got punished for not doing our job as an official of the government. So we're asking you to overturn gay marriage and marriage equality. Because we're assholes. We're optimistic because the 3 current justices, Chief Justice Roberts, Clarence Thomas, and Samuel Alito, dissented in Obergefell, and Dobbs v. Jackson's Women's Health Organization, which overturned Roe v. Wade. 5 justices ruled that substantial due process is not grounded in the Constitution, and the court should remain neutral when the Constitution does not expressly provide a right. So basically, he's like, hey, the court said Roe v. Wade, court should remain neutral in that. Because the government shouldn't get involved with that kind of thing, right? It's so stupid. Because basically, it's a right to privacy. It's a right to equal rights. It's a right to privacy. And the Dobbs case kind of threw that out the window. And now they're trying to use that same justification for Obergefell, which I think is a little easier to deny the overturn of Obergefell because the whole discrimination based on sex includes same-sex relationships. That's been well established with other cases. So, who knows? Who knows? They could, but I think it's unlikely, from my understanding. I'm hoping it's unlikely. Staver continued, Obergefell is likely grounded in what is now rejected doctrine, and the court should remain neutral in regarding marriage as it did in the 2020 court case regarding abortion. Now, we're going to talk about real fast the Respect for Marriage Act, because I've seen a lot of people on TikTok, especially the right-wing grifters, talk about that the Respect for Marriage Act codified same-sex marriage. It didn't. It was signed into law December 2022, and it provides a statutory protection for same-sex and interracial marriages, because some states like Tennessee are fucking trying to make that illegal in their state for some reason. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't know the Klan was running Tennessee. It repeals the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, and requires states to recognize same-sex and interracial marriages performed in other states. This act ensures federal recognition of these marriages and prevents discrimination based on sex, race, ethnicity, or national origin. A lot of people mistakenly believe that this law codifies marriage equality across the board should Obergefell get overturned. And while it does provide some protections, it does not ensure that people can get married in their home state. Like, yeah, sure, they're federally recognized. If you're a military personnel or in the VA and you're in a same-sex marriage, like the government and your benefits in your state or state you move to down the road, if you get like transferred or deployed somewhere else, what is it? I can't remember the acronym right now. I'm tired. It's late at night. But if you get a post change, you change spaces. Like, they have to recognize your marriage and they have to give you the benefits, right? But, like, what if you live in a state? Not everybody can afford to go out of state. Heck, if you live in Texas and you can't get, like, marriage equality there, you have to drive out of state. Do you know how many? Sometimes it takes days for people to drive out of Texas. Texas is fucking huge, right? Like, not a lot of people can afford to drive to another state, and that's if another state close by is going to allow it. Sometimes you're going to have to drive to multiple states. And that's just an extra burden and an extra tax on someone having equal rights. And this also can backfire, because states like Tennessee have passed laws that would allow elected officials, such as judges, to refuse to perform a marriage ceremony if they have a religious or conscientious-based objection to it. And that could backfire on y'all Christians, if you don't know that. Like, oh, hey, I'm Jewish. I've suffered a lot of personal prosecution from the hands of Christian folks in the Klan who use Christianity as a weapon. No Christians. It's law. It's fine. I'm protected. No Christians. I'm not going to do that. Like, what? Do you not realize that all these laws, y'all Christian, like you evangelical Christians, like the ones that are trying to weaponize your religion, do you have any idea how much of this shit can be easily turned back on y'all? And I don't think you will understand that. And that's the thing I want you guys to get through your head. Just like with the whole Utah flag thing, like you guys can't fly your holy flags. I know the Catholic Church has its own flag. You guys can't do that. You can't fly that in schools or anything like that. So it's backfiring on you guys too. And it's just a snake eating its own tail. And I don't think you guys understand that. Unless you do understand that and you're just trying to go for that whole we're being prosecuted thing, which, gross, you're not in this country. Trust me, you're not in this country or most countries. So I'm going to conclude the episode because we are getting about that time. While the case is something that a lot of us in the LGBT community are keeping a very fucking close eye on, I want to let folks know that it's okay to feel scared right now. I want to have a little heart-to-heart with y'all. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel worried about the future, about whether or not your marriage is going to be valid, if they're going to change it or not, if you have, the rights to your kids or not. It's okay to feel that scared, but don't let it consume you. Keep an eye on everything, and in case, make a backup plan. Make sure that your family has their rights, power of attorney, medical rights. And make sure that you can be with your loved ones. Now, I believe it's Under the Desk News has a whole episode on their YouTube channel going over this and avenues you might want to look into to ensure that your family has these kind of things put into place. So please, don't let the panic take over. Be concerned, be scared, feel that scared, but don't let it consume you. Rise up, talk to people, advocate for our community. Even if you can't do much like me, post online, make some noise to show that this is not okay. And a little side tangent, I do want to add that marriage equality isn't done. Sure, some of us have our rights, and the LGBT community is still fighting for a lot of our rights. It didn't end with marriage equality, and it's not going to end for a while. But also, disabled folks. Marriage equality is still a thing for them. That is a fight for them. A lot of folks could lose life-saving benefits that they are getting because they get married. Even if the person is also disabled, even if they're still poor as dirt, they can lose a lot of their life-saving benefits just simply because they got married. And a lot of them are veterans or LGBT folks. So we have to stick up for them too. So while we're fighting for our rights and ensuring that we can still have marriage equality for LGBT folks, we still have to fight for the marriage equality for those with disabilities. But I'm out of steam. So I'm going to end the episode here, y'all. So as always, stay safe, stay vigilant, stay hydrated. See y'all in the next episode.